and welcome to the show where we share the stories of the many who intersect with our healthcare system but are rarely heard from. My name is Kevin Poe, founder and editor of Kevin MD. Rate and review the show at kevinmd.com/rate. Subscribe at kevinmd.com/follow. Today in the show, we have Zed Jha. She is a family physician. Her Kevin MD article is titled Stop Financially Handicapping Non-Citizen Physicians. Zed, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
We'll get into the article in a little bit. Just briefly share your story and journey to where you are today.
My name is Zed Jha. I'm a board-certified family physician who's practicing full scope family medicine with obstetrics in rural Washington state right now. I serve a predominantly immigrant community in a federally qualified health center, FQHC. Currently, I attend outpatient clinic. We admit people to the hospital. We deliver babies, assist C-sections, and we round in nursing homes to provide hospice care, so cradle to the grave. I'm the upcoming fellow in the Underserved Dermatology Fellowship Family Medicine as well. I grew up in Beijing, China. I was 20 years old and 2 years into my medical school training in Beijing when I came to the United States to pursue further education. I graduated from the Geisel School of Medicine at Dartmouth in 2012 and completed my residency at Mayo Clinic La Crosse Family Medicine residency in 2016.
So practicing full spectrum family medicine in a federally underserved area, tell me some of the biggest challenges and rewards of such a practice.
The biggest challenge, I would say, is just the lack of access for our patients. It ranges from the smallest thing that we don't even think about in our own lives. You know, some of my patients don't have legal status. Some of them don't have an ID that they can show anybody that they're legal here. And so they're afraid to even drive out of town to pursue a specialty care. So a lot of times although we're just family physicians and we don't have a lot of specialty care on site, we kind of have to be it for people. We frequently, step a little bit further away from our comfort zone in order to care for the people who just could not afford and cannot get to specialty care.
Yeah, so tell me some of the rewards of practicing in an underserved area.
Oh, my patients are amazing. Their families are amazing. This is a really family-oriented, family value-based population. They really are so grateful whenever you do something for them that's really like, a little bit out of the usual scope of practice or even your comfort zone, or you go the extra mile to help people. Really, people appreciate it. They take you in as their own. They make you food. They bring, their fruits over. It really is really fun to work with them.
All right, so let's talk more about your Kevin MD article. You talk about some of the challenges that you've had training overseas and coming to the United States to practice. It's titled Stop Financially Handicapping Non-Citizen Physicians. Now, for those who didn't get a chance to read your article, just walk my audience through it and share the story of why you decided to write it.
So I become pretty passionate about this topic when colleagues I precept in clinics share the good news of their loan repayment options with me, federally qualified loan repayment. Then subsequently, somebody else assumed I worked here at FQHC for the loan repayment program benefit, which I don't benefit from. So when I explained to them that I don't qualify as a non-citizen physician who has private loans for such a program, they didn't really know what to say. That's when I began to realize that this category of physicians I belong to is very small. We're people who are American trained, non-citizen physicians who had private loans with high interest on these loans while working in rural areas, underserved areas, because we have a passion for being a country doctor. So, providing the same quality service and access to the same population, but I don't financially benefit, from doing so. While I precept those who do, it seems a bit unfair to me, to be honest. So I wanted to write about this topic because I feel that we just, as a small category of physicians like me, we just never had a voice in this matter. So this is a great platform to get the word out about us.
Yeah, so tell us more about this group. You mentioned it's a relatively small group, US trained, but not born in the United States. Tell me some of the unique challenges that you and your other physicians in this demographic face.
Most of the time, it's because we started off on student visa. Most of us are on F1 visa. You're limited in terms of where you can apply to for medical school and residency. Most of United States residency programs and medical schools do not sponsor a visa. So these are simply not the option for us. And the admission rate, acceptance rate for this category of people are really, really small, substantially smaller than citizen physicians or green card holder physicians or applicants. So it's really hard to get into a program. There's not that many programs to choose from. And when you do get into the programs, sometimes there is not financial aid options for you, especially we don't qualify for federal loans for student loans.
Now, what about residency? Any challenges applying to residency as part of this demographic?
Yes, residents, we face about the same issue where a lot of programs we simply do not have access to. Some of my top choices just don't sponsor visa. So, we just have to try and keep asking. And a lot of times when you do get into a program, the program might not be super familiar with this group of people. So they might be struggling a little bit to get you to the right spot. Sometimes you start a little late because of your visa status. Sometimes they email you about things that really aren't relevant about that. In my own case, when I applied I did get into my top choice program, but when I first applied, after I sent in my application, I got this automatic rejection from the program because as soon as they read that my nationality was China, they assumed I was international graduate. In the meanwhile, I'm actually trained in the United States. I went to medical school at Dartmouth. And so that email said, sorry to inform you, but we only accept ACGME, GME, dual certified programs. So thank you for applying. And so, I was like, all due respect. I think Dartmouth is dually accredited, So that was a misunderstanding. We later laughed about it. I had a great experience at my residency, but it just goes to tell you how unfamiliar people are with my group of physicians.
So we have a lot of program directors and administrators who listen to this podcast. So what's the message that you want to share with them? You have a platform here. What would you like to share with them?
I would like to share with just in general, folks who are citizen physicians or people who grew up here, just to let people know that how much extra hurdles we have to jump through to be here with you. And so while we really congratulate you and celebrate your achievement, it is important to be conscientious about the privileges that we all have, so it's so great that you enjoyed the loan rate payment programs in serving marginalized communities, but just know that some of us don't qualify for it. Don't assume that's what we're here for, and advocate for your colleagues who are non-citizens accordingly.
So any stories that you hear from your colleagues from hospitals and programs that assume you're there for the federal loan repayment program, assume that you're there for whatever financial economic benefit? Like, do you sense any bias? Have you heard stories about that?
Oh gosh, every day. I'm about to move on to a fellowship, and I've been in my current job for 3 years. This is my end of my 3 years. I love this job. I love the population. If I wasn't pursuing a fellowship, I would really stay here for a long, long time. But before I left, I'm going around telling people, I'm about to leave. It's nice to work with you. Let's be in touch. And people often say, I'm sad you're leaving, but I'm sure you got your loans paid off. So I'm glad you came here for 3 years. So this kind of assumption is hurtful sometimes because I'm not here for the loan repayment. I did not get it. And at the same time, it makes me feel like I should have gotten it because we work just as hard, maybe even harder to be working here. And this is a tough job. We don't just work as family physicians, we work as the obstetrics physicians, we work as a surgeon, we work as the hospice care provider, we run nursing homes and hospitals and deliver babies on our time off during our lunch chat in the middle of the night. And the next day we still have to attend clinic. That's a full schedule. So it's hard work. So, that comments like that, I know it's innocent, but it stings a little bit in this situation.
Now, when you were telling your story, you mentioned that you were born in Beijing and then you came over to the United States to train at Dartmouth. And you mentioned there were a lot of obstacles that you had to overcome. Just so we could really understand, what are some of the examples of some of those obstacles that you talk about?
So I actually had to restart undergraduate. So before I went to Dartmouth, I spent 4 more years in undergrad in order to get into medical schools because I think almost all medical schools only accept undergraduate schools within the United States. And so we talked about how little options I had, but I probably applied to every single program that said even indicated that they accepted or they sponsor a visa. Probably like, I probably applied for 50 programs out there. I only got into 2 programs, and I'm really happy where I ended up. One of the programs that I was accepted into, actually, instead of accepting me into their regular 4-year program, they called me and said, congratulations, we would like to offer you a 5-year program. And this extra year of medical school is designed to help you learn the language and the culture of America. And I was like, I'm pretty sure, having gone through undergraduate here and having learned English since I was 12, I think I'm pretty confident with my language and cultural awareness within the United States. So I don't really think I need that. So I declined the offer. And then they called me again. They said, oh, congratulations, we're going to offer you the regular 4-year program, among our citizen applicants. But you have to, because you're a non-citizen, we don't really have any financial aid options for you. We would like you to pay a full 4-year program tuition fee upfront right now.
Wow.
This is a private school. So the tuition fee is about $70,000 a year, not counting living expenses. So this is like $200,000, $300,000 right now that I need to pay. And I think it's kind of unfair and maybe even absurd to assume that anybody would have this kind of money laying around, especially somebody who's an international person.
So what kind of advice do you have for other people in a similar situation, people who weren't born in the United States but want to train and go to medical school in the United States? You've done that path. Any pieces of advice for people on a similar journey to yours?
I just would like you to know that we are here and I see you. I know you're working super hard, and I hear your stories and I share the same stories as you. Please reach out, we can talk. I want to encourage you. When I was going through this journey, I think 90% of the comments I received from either international community or local community had just been negative, discouraging. I like to encourage people. I know you can do it, and you inspire me every day. So that's the message I want to get to my small group category of physicians. But for the people who have the power to make policy changes, I think the unfairness of loan forgiveness programs to our private loans and non-citizen physicians working in underserved areas like mine really needs to stop before we run out of doctors who are willing to do this type of hard work. And for the citizen physicians who work with us, and those of us who didn't grow up here, please know that chances are we've had to work really hard to be where we are, to be alongside you. And we'd love to continue to be here and work together. And so let's all be conscientious about the privileges that we all enjoy.
We're talking to Zed Jha. She's a family physician. Her Kevin MD article is titled "Stop Financially Handicapping Non-Citizen Physicians." Zed, any take-home messages that you want to leave with the Kevin MD audience?
This is a great platform. This is where people get to tell stories that's not often heard from. And I encourage people to submit articles to kevinmd.com. This is a really good opportunity to getting your story out there. Thank you so much for having me.
Zed, thank you so much for sharing your story time and insight. Thanks again for being on the show.
Thank you.